We begin this hour with our latest look at Gaza City. It is just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon there, and right now a ceasefire between Palestinian militants and Israel that took effect 11 hours ago appears to be holding. It was a very different scene just minutes after 2 a.m. local time when the ceasefire began. The downtown filled with people cheering and cars honking their horns in celebration of the end of 11 days of hostilities and the heaviest fighting between the two sides since 2014. Egypt helped to moderate the deal, backed by international pressure, spearheaded by U.S. President Joe Biden, facing his first big foreign policy test.
I believe the Palestinians and Israelis equally deserve to live safely and securely and to enjoy equal measures of freedom, prosperity, and democracy. My administration will continue our quiet, relentless diplomacy toward that end.
With the world watching and both sides claiming victory, Egypt is sending monitors to both Israel and Gaza to oversee the ceasefire. 11 days of missile and rocket exchanges exacted a heavy human toll. Health officials in Gaza say more than 230 died, including 65 women and 65 children and 39 women. Over 1,900 have been injured, and at least 58,000 are displaced, having fled their homes. In Israel, authorities report at least 12 deaths, including 2 children. For the latest now, let's turn to freelance journalist Iris Mackler. She joins me live from Jerusalem. Iris, all appears to be peaceful right now, but bring us up to date with how things stand.
Yes, all quiet on the Western Front. So it seems, it's 11 hours, not even 12 hours, but the ceasefire has held. What was extraordinary was to see the celebrations in Gaza last night. They weren't just celebrations of an end of hostilities. They were celebrations of a Hamas victory. Hamas is selling this as a victory, and that's what the people believe. People were saying this is a victory for the resistance and a victory for all Muslims. We have restored the dignity to all Muslims. So there is a feeling of political success, and that spread not just in Gaza, obviously, but also across the West Bank. All the early hours of the morning filled with fireworks and chanting and the green flags of Hamas. That was true in Jerusalem as well. We saw just before the dawn prayer at Al-Aqsa, we saw the streets full of people chanting. We saw the green flag of Hamas, and we heard a very interesting chant. The people want to remove their leaders. That was a reference to Mahmoud Abbas, to the Palestinian Authority president. I'd say he is the big political loser of this conflict, and he has just cancelled or postponed, but in effect cancelled Palestinian elections that were due to be held tomorrow. So all these things, all this timing all together.
And then, of course, there's the question of whether or not Israel might see yet another election there. What would it be, the 5th in 2 years? What is the reaction you're hearing in Israel?
In Israel, there's a more mixed reaction. There's obviously relief and happiness that there's no more rockets raining down and that there's no more conflict. But there's a fear, particularly among people who live in the south of Israel, that it's not going to change anything. They wanted a game. Well, Hamas began this particular round, but I think what the Israelis wanted was a game changer. And what they realize is that they haven't got that. There hasn't been a truce. It's unconditional. They're back exactly where they were before. And what that meant was, if you live in the south of Israel, that meant rocket attacks at a low level. So we don't report them internationally like we've been reporting this past 11 days. And they have to live with that. And everything is as it was. And for the first time, I'm hearing calls from politicians, from analysts for a rethink so that there isn't just another round in a certain space of time. What have they bought? 1 year, 2 years, 6 months? I think people really want to rethink. They don't want to see this again.
Thank you for the latest. Freelance journalist Iris Mackler in Jerusalem.